Inside a large company, it is a common experience to see a logical, well-reasoned project get shut down for reasons that are not immediately clear. This seems to contradict the basic belief that companies are rational systems built to pursue the best ideas. This outcome, however, is often not a failure of the system, but a direct consequence of what that system is actually designed to do. The prevailing assumption is that a large organization functions like a rational machine. Its structures are meant to identify and move forward with the most valuable ideas to maximize overall performance. In practice, though, the opposite is frequently observed. Promising initiatives that have clear benefits are often filtered out, or they are denied the resources they need to move forward. Now, this result is not necessarily an error in judgment or a sign of poor management. Instead, it can be a predictable outcome of the organization's fundamental design. It is an expected consequence of a system that is designed for a different primary purpose, not necessarily for pure innovation, but for organizational stability. To understand how this works, let's follow the journey of a new idea. It starts when it gets evaluated by just one person. And right here, it meets its first filter: the mental shortcuts our brains use to make decisions. These mental shortcuts are also known as cognitive biases. They are not conscious choices. They are systematic patterns of thinking that help us make rapid decisions, but they can also lead to judgments that deviate from pure logic. A really powerful example of this is the anchoring effect. This is our tendency to rely too heavily on the very first piece of information we are offered, which then acts as a reference point for the entire decision. For instance, think about a salary negotiation. A candidate might state a high desired salary. That number immediately becomes the anchor, and it sets the starting point for the whole conversation that follows. So even if the manager later gets data suggesting that a lower salary is more appropriate, their evaluation is still influenced by that initial number. It becomes mentally difficult to adjust far enough away from that original anchor. Now, if an idea manages to pass this individual filter, it next has to face the challenge of a group evaluation. And at this stage, social dynamics introduce a completely new set of pressures. Within a cohesive team, the desire for harmony can become so strong that it actually overrides a realistic look at other options. This phenomenon is called groupthink. The way this works is fairly straightforward. Members of the group begin to prioritize consensus just to avoid conflict. They might stop raising controversial points or alternative solutions simply to maintain friendly relationships within the team. And the consequence of this is that dissenting or disruptive ideas get suppressed. This leads to a loss of individual creativity and independent thought, because members start to self-censor any idea that seems to go against the group's consensus. So, an ideal process would involve a critical evaluation of every idea. In a groupthink environment, however, that is replaced by direct pressure to conform. The focus shifts to reaching a unanimous decision quickly, and silence is very often mistaken for agreement. Okay, so an idea that survives both the individual and group reviews must then compete for resources against projects that are already established. And here it encounters a third filter: a powerful commitment to existing paths. This phenomenon is known as an escalation of commitment. It describes an increased commitment to a past decision, even when negative information about its outcome comes to light. This is often driven by what is called the sunk cost fallacy, where past investments that cannot be recovered are used to justify spending even more. This creates a cycle. An initial investment is made in a project. Then, when negative feedback starts to appear, instead of changing course, decision-makers often increase their investment to justify that original choice. The time, the money, and the effort that have already been spent on existing projects create a very powerful momentum. This resistance to changing course is a kind of institutional inertia. As a consequence, it becomes very difficult for the organization to shift its resources. Diverting them away from a failing but familiar project to a promising but unproven idea is met with a great deal of resistance. These three filters, at the individual, the group, and the structural levels, are not isolated flaws. They are all interconnected parts of a larger system, and this system has a very specific logic to it. The biases and the group dynamics that filter out new ideas are not simply mistakes that need to be corrected within the system. They are, in fact, features of that system. They function as risk management mechanisms, and they are designed to protect the organization from the uncertainty that always comes with change. The entire system is often designed for predictability and for stability. Large organizations are built to deliver consistent results, and that kind of structure inherently favors established processes over new ones. So the system is not optimizing for the best new idea. It is optimizing for the survival and stability of the current organization. The rejection of a good decision, then, is the logical, if unintended, consequence of a system that is successfully doing exactly what it was designed to do.